My name's Mavanwi Warwick and I'm EGM for Regulatory Compliance Global and the Executive Sponsor for Rule of Law Initiatives at LexisNexis. Previously, this has involved being part of the Expert Reference Group for the Human Rights and Technology Project, led by the Human Rights Commission. The final report was tabled in Parliament last year and contained recommendations on how to protect and promote human rights and how responsible innovation methods could be deployed to achieve positive outcomes. You can see the report at tech.humanrights.gov.au, but as a quick summary, it looks at how organisations develop and/or use technologies such as AI with a particular focus on recommendations for government decision-making and accessibility. I found the project really fascinating and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with people from different organisations across government, private sector, academia and civil society to come up with some practical ways the recommendations can be implemented. I'm also really interested in how the recommendations can apply to different role types, whether that's board members, human resources and talent acquisition specialists, product managers, UX designers, procurement, just a few. I'm going to attempt to tie all of these multifaceted issues back to what it means for a compliance professional, those responsible in the organisation for ensuring that regulatory and legislative frameworks are documented and actioned with the appropriate controls. For this reason, I'm going to ask each of my guests to provide some practical tips on how to make the recommendations a reality. My working theory on this is that organisations that adhere to human rights frameworks will see positive benefits across a wide range of KPIs, including employee, customer, shareholder and financial outcomes. I am very happy to be joined today by Denise Tung, currently Head of Digital Commerce at Optus. Denise is a senior product and marketing professional with over 13 years experience in digital product management and strategy, platform transformation, agile delivery and digital marketing consulting at SaaS Solutions in a variety of industries. Denise, thank you so much for speaking to me today. Can we start with a little bit about your background, your current role and why you're interested in the report and recommendations?
Well, thanks for having me, my family here, and I'm really excited to be able to speak on this very important topic. For me, I think the paper reads really well and very relevant to today's day and age. We've just come out of a whole heap of different kind of events focusing on diversity and inclusivity, particularly from a gender perspective. And for me, I think human rights is broader than, of course, gender. It spans across a bunch of different kind of disciplines and aspects. And for me in particular, I'm personally passionate around giving every person an equal opportunity to access either the right job or even access the right products and services. Within my role here at Optus, it's around being able to give customers really simple and fast ways to buy things, things that actually solve a customer need or their own need, be it to stay connected with their teenager, with who's probably travelling on train and needing to get off a certain station, to say individuals who are probably at home and they've got some challenges with their connectivity on the internet. We also provide a lot of now features that go beyond that, giving access to subscriptions on Netflix and also Masterclass. So my role is really, as the head of digital commerce, is to really streamline that purchase experience. And for me, the actual paper speaks to my heart because it does give me a whole heap of, if you like, framework aspects to really keep in mind whenever we launch something out to market. And it's also finally a clear measure of success that if we've given equal opportunity for different customers and actually employees to access the actual products and services that we offer to the Australian market, it's actually meant that I've done my job well and done it properly.
Oh, I love that. I love that definition of success. And obviously I know from working with you many years ago that you are you live the human-centered design concept, and that's something that's part of your daily job, if not success. So when you read the report, what did you think about how you're meeting those challenges already, and what sort of improvements are you looking at in the near future?
Yeah, look, I would say and you talked a lot about human-centered design. It is something that's very close to my heart. So, the one thing I would pick up on from that is we design firstly with the human in mind, and that is essentially what human-centered design is about. You know, you really articulate the problem and the different personas and what they need to be grappling with on a daily basis, and finding ways to actually help them address that need. Design-led thinking also means that you're not led by a business outcome. So, you know, Optus, of course, is there to make money, but I think what's changed since in imparting a more human-centered design approach, and also digital customer-led thinking, is actually doing away with the actual financial outcome, which eventually comes about anyway if you actually solve the customer problem, and actually focusing on what would make the human being kind of tick. And for us, it's actually considering all the personas, putting those into what we call user stories, and then using those user stories to basically define the right experience before we roll something out to market. So I think that's the first point. I think the second point is that, you know, for us, it's also making sure we're clear on the actual definition of done, you know, when we launch a product out to market. And accessibility for me, as a way of example, is something that has to be a definition of done. Without it being accessible, being the website or the app, then we actually haven't achieved our minimalist kind of compliance, if you like, for that product. So I think that's the second point. I think the third point finally would be, you know, being able to address the challenges is being really upfront with our employees as to the why. And all our employees see a need for it because they're measured by in terms of success. We use our team PS scores online to basically ensure that we listen to our customers as well. And when there's a scenario where there's a challenge that we haven't really addressed in terms of a rollout, we put that into our backlog and prioritise it so that it gets sorted out very quickly after that.
I love that. So you're using really established design principles and product development principles, but understanding that there are already benefits built into making products and services accessible. That sounds fantastic. And is this something that you look at both internally and externally, like for your employees as well as for your customers?
Yeah, there's a bit of both. You know, we're always looking at outwards thinking. We compare ourselves to our competitors. You know, we're always mystery shopping on different sites as well. But we also ensure that we're constantly doing research and what we call contextual inquiries with our customers as well, both new, so prospects as well as existing. And we ensure that the plethora of customers that we do ask for feedback on is a mix of, you know, a good balance of the people that are out there, including ones who might be, you know, visually impaired or have hearing kind of challenges. Like those customers are still very, you know, worthy of being our customer. They have all the equal rights and needs to another person who might not have those impairments. So for us, it's very important that we kind of validate our assumptions before we launch something out to market.
So would you be able to share with us some of the examples where you are using technology to improve the human rights of your customers?
Well, yeah. I think, I mean, the one thing, of course, is with some of our Living Networks features that we've launched out to market, a lot of those features are accessible from the app. And the app now is basically compliant, you know, WCAG 2.1 AAA compliant, actually. We're AA compliant on the website, optus.com.au. But basically, the rights of the individuals allow them to actually access Optus Pause, like the ability to pause your internet connectivity. And, you know, I'm sure my family and I can relate to that, you know, having kids, you know, just being able to just stop what they're doing so that they can come and have dinner together with us. That's an example of how we're utilising the technologies of our network to basically help customers. Yeah. I think if you look at then the implicit technologies that we're doing internally around product development, we're using kind of automation capability to basically ensure that accessibility is also tested through automated means as well. So we've got that going from a technology perspective through regression testing. But I think the crux of it as well, and I think this probably leads to another point in your kind of questions, is we're actually employing people as well who can manually actually go in and test our websites, someone who's in the situation of having potentially some sort of disability, but giving them the opportunity to be employed and to actually contribute back to their community through our development process. And we have that person sitting in CX, and they proudly wear the accessibility leader badge, and they go in every day to kind of test all our interaction points.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I think we'd all like to think in a world where, everyone is employable and has equal access to employment and to goods and services. It's great to hear actual examples where organisations are moving forward on those issues, which we know is not always the case. That's a really great example. So, and as where you're sitting in your organisation, is this something you talk about with other business units? Like, how do you work, for example, with HR or with customer service? Is this something that's the top of your list to talk about?
Yeah, it's actually a metric that's shared at the what we call the enterprise level. So whilst we have a digital business unit that's accountable for accessibility on our digital interaction points, we certainly talk about it at the enterprise level as one of our scorecard principles. And in fact, our head of compliance and risk is a person that's kind of having ongoing conversations with, our customer care business and our retail kind of customer facing units. And so it's definitely front and center. It is definitely not just about the digital side of things, but also the physical touch points that we have with our customers. And to have a metric that is shared at the executive level, that's consistently shared again with the people, is actually a big refresher for me. It means that we're all kind of shooting for the same goal, and we've got champions throughout the course of the company from different business units coming together under the badge of diversity, inclusivity, and equality. And the idea is to ensure the accessibility rights are also kind of spoke about in a guild fashion as well as from a metrics fashion as well.
Yeah, and we all know how important metrics are, like, to drive behaviour. I mean, hopefully the behaviour becomes embedded in the culture, but it's certainly a fantastic point, especially if it's shared across different parts of the organisation.
Yep.
So, and there's probably one practical tip, but, you've already talked about the definition of done and how important it is to consider inclusion at the start of the design process. Is that something that you think is something other organisations can pick up if they're looking for practical ways to implement the recommendation?
I think so. And just to labour the point a little further, the reason why definition of done is my one practical tip out of this whole conversation. The reason behind it is that if you actually address the need for accessibility as a must-have requirement, a must-have user story, the longer tail of it is that you will be able to become not only compliant but also relevant to more customers, and actually in a faster manner. I've had a situation merge from, and it's been 9 months since the problem was addressed, where we were behind the 8 ball. Well, accessibility wasn't the definition of done. And what it meant that we had to pause on a bunch of initiatives and other priorities, which could have added value in other different ways to our customer, to address this accessibility compliance problem. So I think shifting it from a compliance problem to one that actually creates customer value, I think, is the biggest tip for me. And by doing it earlier and more frequently around ensuring it's part of the definition of done, you get there in a cheaper manner, you're faster to market, and actually the long tail is that you're going to save yourself a whole heap of pain later on. Because compliance is only there when the actual behaviours not become habitual, and the customer value of sitting behind human kind of rights and accessibility actually should be a thing that we should be thinking about without the need to be regulated by it. So I think that's kind of the reason why definition of done and putting that behind that as a tick box is really important.
I love that. So if I could summarise and hopefully not take away from the great detail you've gone into, it's cheaper, faster, easier, and you're actually doing the right things. So I think that's a very useful and practical tip. So thank you very much, Shanice, for joining us today, and I hope to continue this conversation in the future.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me again. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the other podcasts from all the fantastic lineup of different podcasters. So thank you.